think we all change each other's paths. I don't think any of us can live without affecting one another.
Christopher Edwin Bro, aka Frank Ocean, born October 28, 1987. In the early 2010s, few artists in R&B carried as much intrigue, praise, and promise as Frank Ocean. A member of the experimental rap collective Odd Future, he quickly broke away from the chaos of that group to establish himself as a singular voice. His 2011 mixtape Nostalgia Ultra was a whisper that turned into a raw, earning critical acclaim for its vulnerability and experimental production. By 2012, he was positioned to become the genre's next major force. His debut studio album Chanel Orange confirmed what many already believed: Frank Ocean was special. The album won a Grammy, sold well despite its unorthodox approach, and made Ocean a household name almost overnight. At a time when R&B was slowly merging with rap and losing its identity, Frank provided something fresh, something fans thought could restore the genre's soul. But the moment didn't unfold as expected. Right before Chanel Orange release, Frank published a now famous open letter on Tumblr revealing his first love had been a man. It was a bold move, especially in 2012, when hip-hop culture wasn't known for its acceptance. Instead of killing his career, the confession boosted it. Frank became a symbol of bravery, praised for his honesty. And yet, looking back more than a decade later, the move seemed to mark a turning point. Whether by coincidence or choice, Frank Ocean, the rising star, soon became Frank Ocean, the mystery. After Chanel Orange, he retreated. No follow-up album for 4 years. His absence only grew the legend, but when he returned in 2016 with the visual album Endless and his true sophomore project Blonde, fans expected a new era. Instead, it was the opposite. Frank dropped his music with no promotion, left Def Jam, and disappeared again. No interviews, no real tours, no traditional rollouts, just silence, broken up by rare one-off songs and occasional headlines. By the time he re-emerged for Coachella in 2023, even that moment collapsed under the weight of expectation. His performance heavily criticized. Frank Ocean remains one of the most respected and enigmatic figures in music, but his career feels frozen in time. For someone who once seemed destined to shape the sound of a generation, his silence raises the question few would have asked back in 2012. What happened to Frank Ocean's growth? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth Music. Let's get it, man. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Frank Ocean is a singer, songwriter, and producer from Long Beach, California, who later moved to New Orleans before Hurricane Katrina forced him to relocate to Los Angeles in 2005. There, he began working as a songwriter for hire, penning tracks for artists like Justin Bieber, John Legend, and Brandy. His breakout came in 2010 after linking with the Odd Future Collective, where his voice stood out against the group's raw, rebellious energy. In 2011, Ocean released his debut mixtape Nostalgia Ultra, a project that showcased his ability to blend soul, R&B, and alternative sounds while writing deeply personal stories. It quickly spread online, with tracks like Novocaine earning heavy attention and radio play. By the time he released Chanel Orange in 2012, Ocean had positioned himself as one of the most innovative new artists in R&B, with fans and critics expecting him to lead the genre into a new era. Stunt number 1, Perfectionism and Disappearing Act. One of the biggest stunts to Frank Ocean's growth was his perfectionism, which often turned into long stretches of silence. After Chanel Orange in 2012, he didn't release another project for 4 years. In an era when fans were used to yearly albums, deluxe editions, or at least singles to hold momentum, Frank gave them nothing. His absence built anticipation but also slowed his rise, allowing other artists like The Weeknd, Miguel, and later SZA to capture the spotlight he once held and could have owned for years to come. Frank's perfectionism wasn't just about the music. He became notorious for scrapping projects, reworking material endlessly, and refusing to stick to traditional rollouts. When he finally returned in 2016, it wasn't with the straightforward album drop. Instead, he released Endless, a visual project streamed exclusively through Apple Music just to fulfill his Def Jam contract. Hours later, he released Blonde, his true sophomore album, independently. While both works were praised, the unconventional strategy frustrated some fans who felt shut out by the exclusivity and confused by the lack of communication. The move proved Ocean's independence and artistic integrity, but it also showed how little interest he had in mainstream dominance. He wasn't chasing radio singles, interviews, or award shows. By disappearing for years and returning only on his terms, Frank created an aura of mystery but sacrificed consistency. In music, mystique can make you legendary, but it can also make you irrelevant if stretched too long. By the end of the 2010s, Ocean's influence was clear, but his actual presence in the industry was shrinking. His perfectionism gave us two masterpieces in Chanel Orange and Blonde, but it also stunted what could have been a career stacked with classic albums across an entire decade. Stunt number 2, industry politics and going independent. Another major stunt of Frank Ocean's growth was his exit from the traditional music industry machine. After his critically acclaimed debut Chanel Orange, he was locked into a deal with Def Jam, a label notorious for its control over releases. Frank grew increasingly frustrated with the system, feeling boxed in creatively and unwilling to hand over his art to a label that didn't fully understand him. His solution was bold: outsmart the label. In 2016, he delivered Endless, a visual-only album streamed on Apple Music, which only satisfied his contract. Hours later, he independently released Blonde, retaining full control and ownership over the project. From a business perspective, it was genius. Blonde debuted at #1, sold hundreds of thousands, and allowed Ocean to pocket nearly all the profits instead of splitting it with a label. But from a career perspective, it cost him something invaluable: the promotional power that comes with a major label. Without that push, Ocean's music became harder to find for casual listeners. No mainstream radio campaigns, no late-night performances, no award show appearances, just the music quietly dropped for fans already invested. While the core audience celebrated his independence and he still performed well, still going platinum, the larger cultural impact faded. At a time when artists like The Weeknd were climbing to global superstardom through radio dominance and label backing, Frank was retreating further into his own world. Independence gave him freedom, but it also isolated him. His decision to bypass the system limited his exposure, making him a cult figure instead of the household superstar he could have easily been. In a way, Ocean traded career longevity and consistent visibility for short bursts of brilliance that only his most loyal fans would catch. It cemented him as an artist's artist, but left mainstream growth on the table. Stunt number 3, nearly a decade without a project. The biggest stunt of Frank Ocean's growth isn't industry politics or even his own perfectionist tendencies. It's the simple fact that he hasn't put out an album in almost 10 years and scattered songs here and there when he was supposed to be this era's guy. In music, presence is everything. Even the most talented artists lose relevance if they vanish too long, and Ocean's silence after Blonde has been deafening. That album dropped in 2016, and while it was critically acclaimed and cemented him as a visionary, it also became the last full project fans could hold on to. Nearly a decade later, we're still waiting for a follow-up. Frank's long gaps between releases have always hurt his momentum. After Chanel Orange, he disappeared for 4 years. That was unusual but forgivable because anticipation was sky high, and Blonde delivered. But stretching the gap even further this time has turned anticipation into frustration. In an era where even the biggest stars like The Weeknd and Beyoncé maintain their presence through albums, features, or cultural moments, Frank has chosen complete silence. Fans who grew up with him in the early 2010s are now in their 30s. A whole new generation of listeners has come of age without him, and in music, that's fatal. It's not that his work has been forgotten. Blonde and Chanel Orange are still celebrated, but he hasn't added to the story. Music is about progression, about showing people where you are in life now, and Frank hasn't done that in nearly a decade. When it's all said and done, this is the biggest reason he never became the artist people believed he would. No matter how much talent you have or how much respect your art carries, time moves on without you. For Frank Ocean, not showing up has been the greatest stunt of them all. All in all, Frank Ocean's story is one of unmatched talent, but a career slowed by absence. In the early 2010s, he was positioned to be the face of modern R&B, bridging experimental artistry with mainstream reach in a way few had done before. Chanel Orange and Blonde are timeless projects that proved his brilliance, yet instead of stacking albums and building a legacy across decades, Frank chose silence. Nearly 10 years have passed without a new body of work, and for an artist still in his prime years, that silence has stunted him more than any controversy, tragedy, or criticism. Frank Ocean will always be respected as a generational voice, but the reality is, he could have been so much more. His decision to not remain present left the lane he once owned wide open for others to fill. Salute, much respect, but for these reasons, musically, his growth was stunted. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth Music, and I'm out.